You know every time we speak, it's no apologies. This is Wicklow Healthcare Advisory, presenting industry insiders, brought by Bill Murray. He help you in a real hurry. From ownership to healthcare, he an advocate, teaching you how to buy and sell practices. From CPAs to attorneys, all guests, here to help you with your goals. You never know who's on next. This is Wicklow Healthcare Advisory. Let's go!
Let's go! Welcome, everybody, industry insiders. Another amazing episode for you in the books. We're getting into spring. I think last time I said spring is sprung, but spring is really springing at this point. It's 60 degrees outside. We're recording this on Patriots Day in New England, which is a big day. We got the Boston Marathon, a Red Sox game. We've got people drinking in the streets being crazy. But Patriots Day is a great day here in the New England area. And we have a really great guest today, a New England guest at that, a company that was launched last year that talks about marketing and go-to-market strategies and works with a lot of veterinary brands that are trying to come to market with new technology or new product geared towards veterinary hospitals to utilize. So this is interesting because in the last few weeks, we've been bringing on CPAs and attorneys and companies that provide services to you, the healthcare provider. We're switching gears a bit this week because what this guest does is helps the brands that you're utilizing in your veterinary hospitals. It brings them to you to marketplace, and it brings it to consumers as well. So this is really about marketing. And, marketing is one of those words where when I talk about it with our clients and I say, what's your marketing strategy? What's your marketing focus? Veterinarians usually look at me like I have three heads at that point. Because if there's one thing veterinarians don't like to do, it's talk about themselves or promote themselves or promote their businesses in any way. So we're going to talk with a marketing consultant, someone who owns her own company, that understands the entrepreneurship vibe that we always like here on Industry Insiders. But also we're going to talk a little bit about marketing, because getting people in the door and paying for your services is not as easy as just putting an open sign on the front door for yourselves. So we're very happy today to have Fotine Sotiropoulos. Fotine, come on in. Fotine is the founder of Thavma Consulting, a veterinary healthcare focused consulting firm that focuses on go-to-market strategies for companies. She is the queen bee of all things marketing in the veterinary industry. Fotine, welcome. How are you? It's great to see you today.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you. I'm great. That was quite an entrance that you set up for me. Thank you so much.
Yes, 100%. Now you got to live up to it. I know you will, because you are, we've worked together on things, because I know when I launched Wicklow, I really, my background, obviously being in finance and working with clients, I had very little marketing ideas. I had ideas. I wasn't exactly sure how to put them together. And you and I have had a lot of conversations just as we kind of launched our companies, went out on the entrepreneurship level, and started talking about, who it is you're trying to reach out to. How do you reach out to them? So it's really been fun to kind of be on this journey, and also watch Thavma Consulting the last several months really come on and bring on some clients and do some great work. So congratulations for that as well.
Thank you. And back at you. Actually, you inspired me, to take the plunge and to build something of my own. And I appreciate the inspiration, but I also appreciate just being able to reach out to you and say, hey, this is the kind of day I'm having, and talk through that, because being a solopreneur can be very lonely.
Solopreneur. That's a great word. I love that word. Solopreneur. Yeah. That's fantastic.
And so I have, appreciated that too, and have had to put my own expertise to work as I think about, how I go to market, how I want to show up and connect with clients. So thank you for that.
Awesome.
And I feel you've taken away some of my thunder. At Thavma Consulting, we do specialize in helping veterinary service and technology companies go to market and think about, how they can begin to build trust inside of veterinary practices and create relationships that ultimately turn into adoption, but in the end, advocacy too. You know, this industry is special in so many ways. And I've been in the industry, I think, 18 plus years. We've also worked together in past lives when we were at, you know, different companies that weren't our own. And, you know, you have to build trust within this community. And not only on a one-on-one basis, but people need to know who you know, right? So they can call them and say, hey, you know, I've just been talking to Fotine. Do you know her? You know, and they can serve as an advocate for me as well. And when I first started thinking about bringing my company to market, I actually attended VMX and I was just consulting and people were asking me what I was doing. And I said, well, I'm, you know, consulting and, you know, I'm thinking about doing this on a permanent basis and, you know, expanding my verticals and going into other industries where small businesses could use my help. And I still think that's important, but just being at VMX, the energy and the camaraderie and that feeling you get when you're in this industry, I think one of the things that makes it so special is people actually want to help each other. Every time I go to one of those industry events, people are connecting me to, you know, other people, even when they meet me for the first time. And that's pretty special and makes me want to be in this space and help, you know, other companies figure out how to do that. And again, you know, with a strategy first approach, so they're being mindful about how they're entering.
That's great. So talk a little bit about your background. So obviously you mentioned 18 years at a large laboratory company, not to be mentioned, right? But you spent a lot of time in animal health prior to this, and a
Yeah.
lot of time developing and helping build marketing programs to reach out to pet parents, to reach out to the industry, to reach out to veterinarians. So talk to me about a little on how you've taken that experience and what Thavma does for their clients who's trying to enter the veterinary industry or trying to engage with either pet parents or veterinarians to utilize their technology and services.
Yeah, I mean, we can, you know, we could mention it if we want, but you know, as I think about my work at IDEX, it really was, you know, training and best in class, you know, marketing, but also how you connect with veterinarians and their staff. It's not just decision makers, it's across the board in the veterinary practice. And I consider myself very lucky. I got to do a lot of different things at IDEX, you know, anything from product development to bringing products to market to the projects that you and I worked on, coming up with creative financial solutions to help veterinary practices get diagnostics into their practice. And that always started with the customer at the center and then working our way back, right? And truly understanding what was important to the customer, what resonated with them. So as we were creating marketing strategies or programs or messaging, we weren't talking to ourselves and what we thought that the customer wanted to hear, but we really were talking to the customer in their own words, in their own voice. And we partnered with them to bring our products to market, you know, as we were testing things and getting their insights and developing really strong solutions based on direct feedback from the customer. So, you know, as I think about the small businesses that I'm working with today, they don't have a lot of resources. So, yes, I had a client call last week where they said, well, you know, you come from a big corporate environment. How can you possibly understand what it is that we're going through? And, you know, my response to that was, well, I'm you. You know, I have limited budgets to do what I need to do, and I need to maximize the resources that I have and make sure that the efforts I am doing are focused on the right things. So I understand from my own personal perspective to have, you know, limited resources, limited budgets, and making sure that the things that you're working on are the most important. But I also got that experience while I was at IDEX. We didn't always have great big budgets, right? We were told to do more with less and figure out how to maximize the things we were doing. And, you know, when you grow up with those kinds of lessons, you learn to create something out of nothing, and you learn to celebrate the small wins and to stay focused. And that's really what the strategy first process is all about. You know, a lot of companies, it's not about doing more marketing, it's about doing the right marketing and have it be focused on the right things to be able to build trust with the customer. And I think those are the things that I'm finding as I'm talking, you know, to customers. Are asking me things like, well, how many reels should we be doing? And how many posts should we be doing? And what platforms we should be on? And those are all good questions as tactics. But if you don't have the strategy in place to understand what your messaging is, who your customers are, and what's really important to them, none of that stuff is going to land. You're just going to be marketing in circles. And so, you know, those are the things that I've learned along the way, and those don't change. It doesn't matter whether you're in a big corporate environment or in a small company with limited resources. That system, that framework, it's the same. It needs to be focused.
Absolutely. And I hear that myself. Like when you are, and it's very funny how you mentioned, like, we both came from very large organizations. And I think sometimes people think like, well, you just had all these resources available, which in and of itself is true. However, you can't miss, right? If you develop a campaign and you develop the program and you develop the marketing strategy around something and you go to put that out into the marketplace, you can't just miss and flush that money down the toilet. And I think both of you and I are feeling that today. Like, part of the things about being a solopreneur, I love that word, is you do have, not only do you have like monetary resources that are you know, put in a box. Like, I've got a budget for marketing and that's my budget. I'm not getting any more money. Like, the big company isn't coming in with a windfall saying, hey, you have an extra $100,000 to spend. So there's resources like that, but then there's also time resources, right? As a solopreneur, there's only so many hours in a day or a week or a month. And, you know, I do find that sometimes I pull away a bit from marketing because I've got client-centric things I have to deal with. I have client-facing opportunities I have to deal with. It's about going in the marketplace and doing the work. Sometimes marketing does tend to fall on the wayside. And I see this very often in healthcare practices, very much so in veterinary practices. Take away like the corporate practices, but those independent hospitals like do very, very little marketing, if any at all. So I'd like to kind of switch gears a bit and talk about like, what are some of the things that you would introduce as far as strategies that a small business like a veterinary hospital could make sure, at the bare minimum, what should they be doing and thinking about when they're thinking about engaging their community, right? Because you mentioned trust now a few different times, and there's no bigger place where trust has to be there than in a healthcare practice or in a veterinary hospital. So can you talk a little bit about how that kind of transposes into veterinary hospitals and what they should be thinking about when they think about marketing?
Sure. I'd say one of the biggest things is organizing their messaging around what actually matters to their clients in a clear and simple way, and making sure they understand the real pain points. One of the things you said earlier on is veterinarians don't like to market themselves. And, you know, unfortunately, and we're both experiencing this, right? Part of your brand is who you are. And I have been, you know, talking to veterinarians through my own clients, right? Talking to them directly about how they're using their products and how they're using the services. And the one thing that I'm blown away with every single time is how veterinarians are practicing medicine and the things that they're doing that makes their practice different. So, you know, I would encourage that, you know, clarity and message, but talking about yourself, you can talk about the things that make you different as a veterinarian. You can bring heart into the medicine and share that with your pet parents so they understand who you are and they feel comfortable bringing their pet there and receiving, the best possible care. They want to know that you're, advancing with the times and understanding how veterinary medicine is moving. And you can share those things in a way that doesn't make you feel completely vulnerable, that you're putting out just personal things, but it's really about sharing what you love and how you do it.
And it's funny, like some of that happens, it doesn't necessarily have to be like a LinkedIn post. Some, marketing is happening inside your business at all times, right? It's making sure your staff is aware when you do introduce a new technology to the practice. Why did you do it? How does it help clients? How does it help pets? And how are you talking about that within your practice when clients and their pets show up, right? Like that's marketing. You just spent, $100,000 on this new cone beam technology or this new laser therapy, or you're introducing dentals and, dental therapy to your practice. I can't tell you how many times I walk into my veterinarian and they've introduced new technology because I'm asking them about it, but no one else is talking about it in the hospital whatsoever. It's like, am I supposed to learn that through osmosis? That's not how I learn. So it is interesting. Can you talk a little bit about that, like
Yeah.
how they can get past that and just what does marketing really mean in a veterinary hospital?
So, one of the other things I was going to share is making sure that you involve your team, right? Anyone from the receptionist, technicians, all the way to the other veterinarians, because when everyone is aligned around the messaging, what makes you different, what technologies you've brought to market, it makes things so much easier. But one of the other things that you brought up is really important is it's not all about a post. It's not about doing fancy things. It's about thinking about what are the touch points with your pet parents, right? Anything from when they pick up the phone to call you, or if they're in, your app scheduling or getting reminders. What does that look like? What does that feel like? And one of the things that we do at Thavma Consulting, which I think is very different, is we don't look at the customer journey in a traditional funnel, which basically gets you from awareness to adoption. We look at it from the moment they learn about you, it all the way down to when they start to advocate for you and what that feels like. So how do they learn about you? How do they begin to like you? How do they begin to trust you, which is really important, right? That's the piece that you're really trying to build. How do they try you? When do they officially move over into purchasing your services? How do they start to advocate for you? And we look at those different pieces and really help the companies that we work with think about those things in a really mindful and focused way. And I think those are the things that veterinary practices can think about, that it's not about the, always about the reel or the Facebook, but thinking about the journey.
That's really insightful. And it's funny, like again, I'm picking up on a couple things. So it's not just about getting them in the door and getting them to adopt your service. It's also about it's about advocating, right? So like your best clients let's just talk about a veterinary hospital. The best clients that you have aren't just the ones that prescribe to your medicine, right? They're showing up every 6 months when you do a treatment plan for them, or you're giving them options to help their pet live a healthy life. They're saying yes to those treatment options. That's a great client to have. But the best client to have is the one who, after they leave your hospital and have said yes to the treatment plan and didn't really push back and are really engaged in their pet's health, they're going out and telling people about you. They're going out and getting you new clients and saying, when someone says, oh, someone moves to your neighborhood and says, oh, what veterinarian do you use? It's not just, oh, I use this guy down the block because it's easy and they're okay. They're actually telling a story, right? So that's the best client to have. And that doesn't just happen like by accident, I'm assuming, right? That's really what I'm gathering from this
It's
discussion today.
it's exactly right. Right. That's the, that's the piece of it. And that's why not skipping the strategy is really important. So, you said earlier you talked to your veterinary clients about what your marketing strategy look like, and they look at you like they have three heads, but they also feel overwhelmed because that's not where their skill set is, right? That's not what they're thinking about. They're thinking about how they're delivering care. And a good marketing strategy is going to help them focus on how to deliver care, how to do the things that they actually love and they actually talk about, and then how to work with their pet parents, to grow their business through through the pet parent experience.
So baseline, let's give a couple of ideas, right? So and I'm going to put you on the spot here for a minute. So when you think about a marketing plan for a veterinary hospital, right, or how they're going to engage the community, can you give a couple of, you have to have this, is it a website? Is it social presence? Is it, community engagement at events? Like, what are some of the things that if you were to work with a veterinary hospital, you would say, listen, these are have to haves. If at the very baseline, you need to be engaging your community with these things. What are some of those things?
Yeah, I would say the first thing is the website. It's not just about having a pretty website. Again, it's about making sure that your strategy is reflective of what it is that makes you different and what your community cares about, what your pet parents care about. And let's face it, we live in a digital world where I'm facing this in my own business. Everything is happening virtually, and people are going out to get information from them for themselves, to educate themselves before they do anything else, to be able to move forward and pick up the phone and call. So the website is not just about listing your staff, but also sharing the way that you practice medicine or tips, right? So, I think one of the things that I use in my own business is my blog. And when I first thought about doing it, I felt very overwhelmed by it. But what I realized is the more I talked to my customers, the more insights they gave me to be able to put information back out to them that would help them. So I would encourage things, whether it's seasonal tips about, we're here in the Northeast, right? So we're talking about ticks now. Tips for tick season, and it doesn't have to be fancy, and it just needs to be simple and useful for your pet parents.
You have to come from a place today, it feels like, where your website is usually the first place new clients and new pet parents will engage with you, right? So it should be updated. It should also be, it's no longer about how to find us. It's no longer about like, okay, I know what your address is, and thank you for listing your phone number, but I'm actually engaging with you to see what can I learn here? Who am I going to see? What does the hospital look and feel like? What type of things are they going to do here? Do they have any advanced technology? Are they offering different types of services? I'm doing all of that due diligence up front before I even walk into your doors today because we are in a digital age. This is a digital environment we're in. That's a really great point. And it sounds like you're saying it's not just about putting some photos of you and your staff on the website and saying this is Harry from the front desk, this is Molly, the tech. It's really about providing some education and making sure they understand, like, it is tick season. I mean, it's funny you said tick season. I took a tick off our French bulldog last week and was like, oh my God, it's tick season. Those are real things that happen. And it's about educating clients to getting them to want to walk into your hospital at that point, because they've already done half their due diligence before they've walked in, right? That's just kind of how today is.
Exactly. And I think social media it's a channel, right? And it's an inexpensive channel that practices can use to get their messages out there. And that's the second way that customers are looking for you, right? They're going to see if you have a Facebook, depending on, which, age bracket they're in, or they're going to Instagram. And these don't need to be, clever or different than anything else you're doing. So if you put on, 5 tips for tick season, you can leverage that over and over, on your social media channels to be driving people to your website, which is really where you want them to go anyways, to learn about you, to start to feel that first experience, right? What it's going to feel like to walk into the practice and meet with my veterinarian for the first time in the type of care that my pet is going to receive. So, I would say those things, but again, don't skip the strategy. And it doesn't need to be complicated or have 100 different tactics. As long as you're clear about what your messaging is, your team is involved, they're clear about it, and you're using the touch points, again, whether they're calling you at the practice or going to your website, it'll make a world of difference.
It's funny, I was talking to a dentist, and she was talking about how, all of a sudden she'll go to like a CE course and learn something new. And one of the things she learned 2 years ago was about Invisalign. She went to an Invisalign class, and those are those kind of clear aligners that straighten teeth that don't necessarily need braces. But she went back and she was all excited about Invisalign and started talking to her staff about it. And before you know it, for the next 6 months, they did as many Invisalign cases that they possibly could. And it was because she was educating her team. The team was engaged. She wanted to do it. And they started talking about it within the practice. And they put some stuff on the website. She started putting some stuff on social. And it just kind of grew organically. So that, it almost seemed a little bit, she was like, if I was being honest, it was probably by like accident that some of that happened. But when you have those moments, when you come back from VMX and you've seen something new, or you're going to introduce a new technology, doing it with some purpose and doing it strategically. Like, you use the word strategic a lot, but it's true. Like, having a plan for marketing and then strategically executing to that plan every time is extremely important, because it can fall by the marketing is one of those things that can fall by the wayside, I feel like, very, very quickly. Do you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah, I do. Because when people think about marketing, they think about the amount of effort it's going to take and how expensive it is, right?
Yes.
Not just in dollars, but in time. And it feels like too much. But if you have a very clear strategy and you have strategies that support that, or tactics, it becomes very easy. And again, it's not about doing everything, it's not about, the next big thing and jumping on it. It's about doing the right things consistently in a focused way that's tied to what the objectives are of your business, right? So if those things aren't tied together, it really doesn't matter what kind of things you're doing. It's never going to land.
And it's funny, like, as someone who really wasn't looking forward to marketing, and this, like, I mean, we've had many a conversation about the marketing of Wicklow. As someone who doesn't really love to put myself out there, the podcast was tough. The Wicklow wisdoms that are coming out in a few weeks, those were different. But it's as soon as you start putting it all together and then start putting it out there, it does become easier. Like, now I have a process because you put me on a plan, right? It was like, talk about a plan, execute to the plan, and then it becomes like clockwork. So now all I really have to do is, if I come across something that I think is content worthy, I can put that together and then just put it on the site, put a blog post out there. The blog post goes to LinkedIn, LinkedIn goes to Facebook, Facebook goes to Twitter, X. Once you have the system down, it becomes much easier. It's funny, like, a lot of people, including myself, were like, a marketing plan is going to take months to get together and to figure out. And if you're working with someone like yourself, it's not true. Like, it's about making sure you talk to someone that understands how to put it together for your business, which I feel is great. And that's what you do.
Yeah, it's really important. And I think, you mentioned something about how hard it felt. It felt hard for me, right? When I thought about launching my business and being a career marketer, a career strategist, a marketeer, whatever you want to call it, I felt like a fish out of water. And, what I would say to solopreneurs and veterinary practices is, you just got to show up every single day. And it does become easier. And the more you're talking to your customers, that's why I say it always starts with the customer, and then you can work your way back. the easier it becomes, because that's how I'm creating I'm talking to you, or I'm talking to other clients, and that's how I get my ideas to be able to put things out there that'll be helpful, to my clients. And I think when you do that, you can't lose.
I read your content on your blogs, and it's very impactful. Like you bring forth, and you can almost tell that you had an interaction with the client, and you were like, well, this is a good blog, and you write it up and you put it out there, and it's all really, really great content. I follow it along. And for those listeners that aren't following Thavma Consulting, it's on social. She's got a great website. Certainly, if you're looking for marketing tips and strategies, that's a great place to start. And then engaging with Fotine and her team is also a great place to be. But just the blog posts themselves have been helpful. So thank you for that. We're coming up on our time here, and I just want to make sure we wrap up with your Wicklow. As many of our listeners know, we talk about what's your Wicklow here, because that's kind of what the retirement. Why are we doing all of this for ourselves and our families? So Fotine, just to ask you straight up, what's your Wicklow? What's that retirement story? What's that dream that you have?
Yeah, mine would be being able to go to Greece, to my family home. We have a family home in my dad's village every single year for a period of time. And I go back and forth on, will I ever retire? I think what I'll do is slow down. I love to share, my insights and help other people grow. It's something that I was, good at and passionate about when I was in corporate, and I want to carry that forward, helping others, whether it's veterinary practices, veterinary services, or other solopreneurs get into business. I think I'll maybe continue that and be writing, blogging, or podcasting. From my village house in Greece, to be able to, share the things I've learned, and hopefully inspire others to believe in themselves and move forward with their dreams.
It's awesome. What a great story. And I know you'll get there. But again, great conversation today. For all of you solopreneurs, that's a new word. I feel like every time I do one of these, I learn a new word to use, or a word that I like. So for all of us solopreneurs out there that think marketing is something that just is too hard or too complicated or too much time, don't. Because it's all about making sure you're engaging with customers with good content, putting yourself out there a little bit, and you'll find that a really detailed, good marketing plan is not as difficult to execute as you think it is. It's just getting that first step, taking that first step, doing it very prescriptively, and making sure you contact a company like Thavma and have that initial conversation about what it is you're trying to accomplish, who it is you're trying to attract, and putting that plan together and executing. So Fotine, great conversation today. Congratulations on Thavma Consulting. I know everyone on this that listened to this today got some takeaways. So thank you for your time. It was great to see you. Everybody, that's Industry Insiders. We're going to wrap it up. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you in a few weeks. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Every time we speak, it's no apologies. This is Wicklow Healthcare Advisory, presenting Industry Insiders, brought by Bill Murray. He help you in a real hurry. From ownership to healthcare, he an advocate, teaching you how to buy and sell practices. From CPAs to attorneys, all guests, here to help you reach your goals. You never know who's on next. This is Wicklow Healthcare Advisory. Let's go!